Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. Prep my bag here. I have been busy working through all the stuff I harvested from the garden. I made some Serrano hot sauce. I've got some marinated peppers. And honestly, y'all, I tried to film the Serrano hot sauce video, but I wasn't feeling very good and it was not going well. Plus, it turns out the Serranos are really, really hot. And I don't know if that's just the time of year or what exactly, because I make hot sauce with Serranos that are red and have not encountered this, but I could not taste any of the other flavors in the hot sauce. It has, what all does it have? It has garlic, it has onions, it has a bunch of cilantro in it, just lots of really lovely flavors in it. And all I was getting was heat when I was trying it. So I added a bunch more of the seasonings to it, and it still just tasted hot to me. And then it occurred to me that maybe I just needed to temper it in some way. And so I mashed up an avocado and mixed it in, and it actually turned out to be really tasty once I found a way to be able to taste it beyond the heat. But I didn't get that stuff filmed, and I'm really sorry. I will share the recipe for you guys if you're interested. I think for me, I would really like that hot sauce, but maybe I need to do it with something that's a little bit milder than a Serrano. But now I am moving on to my green tomatoes. I found a recipe for a green tomato and pork stew that I thought sounded really good. But I'm not ready to make that. I don't have all of the ingredients. And so I just thought I would go ahead and chop the tomatoes up, put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. And then they're just there waiting for me when I am ready to make that stew. And we'll come back and make that together because I think it sounds really good. But right now, the name of the game is just processing everything so I don't waste any of the produce that came from the garden. Now, I do have all of these peppers I still have to chop up. I'm sort of waiting, like this one is almost finished ripening, and I'm gonna roast this and add it to the marinated peppers I made. So I'm waiting on a few peppers like that. But otherwise, those are just gonna get chopped up for diced green peppers. And then I have so many eggplants. I do have some recipes I'm going to make with eggplants. That is probably a different day's project. But what else? Oh, if you were with me during that harvest, I have this zucchino rampicante. It is starting to be a little bit shriveled. You can see it's not great right there. And so I thought we could make some soup together. I scrubbed that thing really well earlier today, and I'm gonna peel it and chop it up, and we're just gonna make like a roasted butternut squash soup. I think that'll be really nice. And my mom has been sick. She has a sore throat, and so soup sounded like a good option anyway. So it's nice to have things on hand that we can make soup from. So I'm gonna keep working on chopping up some of these vegetables here, and then when it's time to work on the squash soup, we will come back and we will make that together. Well, you guys, I got all of my bell peppers chopped up and my green tomatoes. Those are both ready to go in the freezer. So I'm very happy to have some more projects taken care of, even if they're just the most basic of projects. But now I'm going to work on this squash. So I'm just cutting it into chunks. I think it's going to be the easiest way to deal with this. And I'm going to put some gloves on. You don't want squash hands with that tight skin. So then I'm just going to peel it and chop it into chunks. Now, most of the recipes I have seen for roasted soup, roasted butternut squash soup, they do not peel the squash. I'm doing that because the skin is so wrinkled and there are places I really don't want in the oven and close to the cooked food. So I'd rather peel it and wash it really good and then roast it. But if you have a pristine squash, you can skip this step. But I think this is probably going to take me a little while. So the squash looks really good. I can tell though that if I'd let this go much longer, we would have lost this squash. So I'm glad we're using it now. I do know for future years, I let a couple of these stay outside too long and they should have come in the house much sooner. So they started getting soft like this one. I had one I just had to leave outside because it wasn't good. I also learned they really need to be elevated. I had a couple that grew long enough where they were that their bulb touched the ground and bugs and stuff got to the bulb and the bulb rotted. So I may have to rethink where I put these next year. I don't know if they were on a trellis, so I don't know how much of a difference it'll make if I move them to a different trellis, but just something I'm contemplating. But for now, I'm just gonna get it all peeled up. Got it all peeled, got the bulb end chopped open, so now I'm gonna scrape it out. This is definitely a little softer than one that you would want to store. I don't know if you can see how bendy it is. It's very thin, this bulb end is, which is kind of interesting to me. I don't know that I've ever seen one quite this thin, but it'll still roast up and taste delicious. I really like a roasted pumpkin soup or squash soup, whatever you want to call it, because I love how you get those browned bits on the squash and they just add some extra caramelized flavor to the soup. So that's why I decided I wanted to do a roasted soup today. And we're going to do this with warm spices. So we're going to add some ginger, add some cinnamon and cumin to it, some coconut milk. I think with my mom being under the weather, all those warm spices are really helpful when you've got a stuffy head and a sore throat. So that is the flavor profile I want to go with today. So I am just going to chop all of this into fairly decent sized cubes. They don't have to be perfect because we're just going to roast this and then it's all going to get blended up in the end. These ends kind of crack me up. I may leave them bigger just because look at how thin that end is. I will go through and get all of that chopped up. The other thing I'm going to do is cut this garlic bulb in half. I'm going to drizzle this with some oil and wrap it in foil and toss it in with our squash while it roasts. Now that our squash is all chopped up, I've got it on a parchment lined baking sheet. I just like that it saves me some extra cleanup. So I use the parchment paper. But if you don't want to use parchment paper, it's not a requirement here. I'm going to drizzle this with some oil. I'm using avocado oil because that's what I've got handy. And then we're going to just season the squash up. So cracked pepper, some cumin, cinnamon, I don't want to go too heavy on the cinnamon. And I like a little bit of heat, so we're going to add some red pepper flakes to it. Not too much, maybe just about a quarter teaspoon worth. And then last, we're going to add some salt. Not a ton of salt because we can always adjust that when we're making our soup at the end. I know I'm using homemade broth in this soup, and so I know it's got some salt in it. Plus, by the time we add things like the coconut milk, just various elements will change how much salt it needs. So just a little bit for now. Get this all tossed up, spread out on our tray. And then I grab myself a piece of foil so we can wrap our garlic up. Take this glove off. Just drizzle that with a little bit of oil as well. Make a little pouch. Pop it in the corner here. And then this is ready to go in the oven. I'm going to roast this at 400 for about 25 minutes, and then I'm going to check on it. I'm looking for it to be nice and tender and have just some brown caramelized bits. So into the oven. While our squash finishes roasting, I'm going to get a little oil in our pot here, and I'm going to add 1 onion in here to saute. I just sort of rough chop this onion because, again, we're going to blend this all up. Y'all, that squash is smelling so good roasting in the oven. The cumin and the cinnamon, it just smells wonderful. The soup's going to be so good. So I'm just looking to cook these onions till they're starting to be translucent and nice and tender. Not really looking to brown them or anything. Just soften them up. Our onions are looking great. They're starting to look translucent. I am starting to see a little bit of browning in my pot, which is not really what I'm going for. So I am going to go ahead and add my broth. I have a quart of turkey broth here. This is just what I have on hand, but if you want to keep this vegetarian, use vegetable broth. You can use chicken broth, just really whatever you want. I think most recipes seem to call for vegetable broth, but I'm a big fan of using what I have on hand. In addition to the broth, I'm going to add a nub of ginger that I peeled. I really want that to permeate our broth. So I'm just going to let this sit here and simmer for a few minutes while our squash finishes roasting. So I thought I'd bring you guys out here with me while I grab some herbs and show you the garden. The frost definitely came. And my wrapping on my fig tree did not last, so we're going to have to get that wrap back up before we have another cold snap. But everything has well and truly bit the dust. The only things that are really still doing well are things like my chives and my cilantro. Parsley still looks decent as well. So here you can see the chives are still nice and green. Grab some for our soup. So now I'm looking for cilantro. There's a lot of it in my walkways, and I just have to find it in between all the other things that are in my walkways. As you guys know, cilantro has a pretty distinct smell, so there's no mistaking it for something else. I do have some growing in the bed, but I've picked quite a bit off of it. So we have our herbs for topping our soup with. I do want to get out here this week now that the garden is dead. This is not my favorite time of year. It smells like decay. But we're back into the 70s for a few days. It's so crazy. We had a record low high, so it only got up to 38 degrees one day. The next morning we had a record low. It was 21 degrees. And we had record snowfall because it flurried, and it had never flurried even on that day. So it's just crazy because now today is 65 and you can see it's beautiful out here. And then we're going to have like 3 days in the 70s. I don't know. I imagine a lot of you are dealing with the same crazy weather as well. Our squash is nice and cooked, roasty, fork tender, has some beautiful brown bits on it. I am going to pull the garlic off of here and then try and get our squash into my blender. Let's see if I can do this. I'm hoping I can just use my parchment paper and do that. Perfect. I do want to get the garlic opened up and cooling so I can handle it when we need to squeeze it in here. Oh, it looks perfect. Very toasty though. It smells fantastic as well. So I'm just going to let that cool for a couple of minutes so I can handle it. But while I let that cool, I'm going to ladle our onions and some of the broth into the blender. Also our nub of ginger that's in here as well. I might need more broth. We'll just have to see. But I'd rather start with not enough and add more than end up with a soup that's thinner than we really want. All right, let's add some broth as well. I don't necessarily need to add all of it, but just enough so that this will puree nicely. Smells so good. I might actually put all of it in here. Let's see. I don't want to fill it too full because it's all very hot. Get our lid on here. Blend it up. I do think we're going to want some more broth. Squeeze out our garlic here. Get it in there. No garlic paper. This garlic smells so good. You have never roasted garlic like this. It's just so nice. It mellows out the bite of the garlic, and you just end up with this really roasty, sweet garlic flavor. Oh, it's so good. Ooh, I'm trying to be careful. It's still pretty warm. We want to get as much of that roasted garlic as we can. And not the paper. I think if you had a larger head of garlic than I did, this would be a little bit easier. But I worked with what I could find. Right, let's get that garlic incorporated. Get our pureed soup all added into our pot with the rest of our broth. Y'all, I wish you could smell this. I'm very much looking forward to eating this soup. So now we're going to add about half a cup of coconut cream. I'm just eyeballing that, but if you want to be more exact, looking for about half a cup. And then looking at this, I do want this a little bit thinner, but not a whole lot. So because I have it, I am just going to add a little bit of water and a little bit of my freeze-dried broth. That way I don't have to open a new jar of broth that I won't use all of right now. And then just about a teaspoon of my broth powder. Isn't the texture lovely? So velvety and smooth. So I am just letting the soup finish heating through again. Adding the coconut milk and that water cooled it down a little bit. So it just needs to be a little bit warmer. But I want to give it a taste and see if we need to adjust our flavors at all. Oh man, y'all. It's so good. I don't really think it needs anything else. The salt level is really good. There's a spice there from adding those red pepper flakes, but it's not overwhelming, just like a nice little heat in the back of your throat. And the sweetness from the squash and that roasted garlic. Also, those warming spices with the cinnamon and the cumin. I love the soup so much. So we'll let it finish heating the rest of the way through, and then we'll dish some up and have ourselves a bowl of soup. And I'm going to top this with some of those chives and the cilantro we chopped up. And I think some of these salted pumpkin seeds on top will be really good. So let's do that. It's really pretty. I also think some chili crisp would be really good on here. Chili crunch, chili crisp, whatever you want to call it. I have the Trader Joe's version, but I think those flavors would work really well on here. So let me grab a spoon and we'll try it with the addition of the herbs. All right. The cilantro in particular adds such a nice brightness to this. I thought it would be good, and it's a great addition. So I'm really happy about that choice. I hope if you guys live somewhere cold, if you got a bunch of butternut squashes or zucchini rampicantes laying around, you'll give this recipe a try. So good. So I will write it up and link it down below for you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.